Wouldn't it be amazing to have a perfect credit score? Getting to that 850 might be super impressive, but you'll quickly realize that there are no benefits for it, guys. In today's video, we're going to be running through the credit scores. Once you do get to a certain point, short of that, it is kind of the bragging rights of having a perfect credit score or an ideal credit score. Now, personally, guys, I have been in finance for 16 years. That is right, guys. Decade going on 2 decades that I have been in the financial industry. I have never seen an 850 score. I have yet to see an 850. Around an 842 was actually the closest that I've ever seen to having a literal perfect credit score, being at the tippy top, regardless of the background you had, where you came from, how much money you make, how often you paid, how much history you had. The 850, again, I don't even know at this point if it is achievable, but I'm going to break it down with the credit scores, guys. And knowing your credit score is super important for the simple fact that when you go into a financial institution, when you go to get a loan, you'll know exactly what your score is. Now, also with credit scores, there are a plethora of things that credit scores are utilized for, not just loan decisions, not just mortgages. When it comes to getting a job, credit scores are a big driver. When it comes to insurance, credit score is a big driver. There is a ton of things that has the credit utilization, meaning that the better FICO score or the better credit score that you have, the more likely you are to progress faster at a much cheaper rate when it comes to what you're going to pay for loans. Even when it comes to the chances of getting a job or not getting a job, credit scores could play a very important part in that, as well as getting apartments, getting housing, things of that nature. Again, credit scores have a big play in that. Now, FICO scores range from a 300 on one side to an 850 on the other side. So you can imagine there is a massive range, which again, we're going to go through. So starting at the 300 to the 579, according to Experian, is considered poor credit. Now, this credit score is usually established if you've had late payments, if you have collection accounts, if you have open collection items, if you've had bankruptcy, if you've had repossessions. When you start getting into the low credit scores, even the lowest that I've seen in credit scores is probably about mid to high 4s, even get down to a 300 range. Again, don't think the bottom level is possible or the very top tier is possible when it comes to the credit scores. But if you are in a poor credit range, the 300 to the 579, chances are if you're doing loan applications, if you're doing really applications for anything, they're going to deny you based on credit history alone. Now, when you start getting into the fair score, this is the 580 to the 669. So this is about the credit, I would say, if you're really putting a letter on it. This is kind of the fair credit. This means that you've had a couple bumps in the roads with your credit. Again, it could have some late pays, some slow pays, could have some collection accounts, but a lot of lenders will still work with someone who is in that fair credit lending, the 580 to the 669. When it comes to that, you're going to get a much higher rate. The best rate for, let's say, an auto loan might be 5.49. Chances are you're going to be in the 18% bracket, which means a $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 car is going to be exponentially more expensive because you're paying 3 times the interest that you would be if you had a much better credit score. And that is if you can get approved. Within the fair range as well, these are most of the places that say the guaranteed credit approval. Even we've seen auto lenders and dealerships that guarantee auto approval or guaranteed financing. That cannot get you financed. There are clauses in there and there are very fine print where even though they say guaranteed approval with a little star at the end, that little star means it possibly couldn't apply to you depending where your score is at. Now, when we start getting into the good FICO range, it is the 670 to 739. Now, that is kind of the A-B range when it comes to credit scores. This means usually when you go to apply for a credit card, when you're applying for a loan, you are going to get a good rate. It might not be the exceptional, it might not be the best rate, but you are going to get a good rate. Where again, if the best rate is 5.49, you might be looking at the 7.25, 7.5, possibly even a little bit lower, again, depending on the lender. Now, when we start getting into the very good credit, this is really the point, guys, the 740 to the 799. This is considered A or A plus credit tier. This is where lenders are more than happy to lend to you because you have the ability to pay. Usually within here, you haven't missed any payments. You're managing your credit card debt really well. The capacity on your cards is really well, and you have many years of established credit history at this point to run into the very good category. Now, the thing with this, guys, is when you get to this very good category, when it is the 740 to 799, this is kind of the stopping point when it comes to the rate. You are going to get the best rate for mortgages. You're going to get the best rate when it comes to auto loans, when it comes to credit cards, when it comes to pretty much anything, including insurance. You're going to get the best rate. And again, anything above the very good takes it to the 800 to the 850, which is the exceptional credit tier. These again are the lenders that they know you're going to pay because you've always paid. You've never missed it. You have 25 plus years of payment history on the books. You carry almost no debt, and the credit score is exceptional. And this is the reason that you get that mark of exceptional. Now, again, looking at the very good at the 740 to 799, and then the exceptional, it is going to be the exact same fair credit treatment, meaning that you're not going to get, again, a better rate when you get to that point. But the difference comes in when, again, you start getting to, the 600 to the 740 range is really the point where things can get a lot more expensive exponentially when you're looking at, let's say, a $300,000 mortgage, where you could have a 7.5% if you're in that BC credit, or if you are in that A to A plus credit, you could have a 7%, which again is going to save you about $40,000 over the life of the loan, guys, which is crazy. So literally going between, let's say, a 675 to a 700, again, going from that B range to that A range, you could save almost 40 grand on a mortgage just based on the interest alone. So how do you improve the credit score, guys? Big thing that I see more than anything is one, the payment history, and two, the credit utilization. Credit utilization is probably the biggest one that you have the most control over. Really, two ways you can handle this is one, paying down the balances that you do carry on the credit card are going to exponentially increase your credit score, guys. When you're not carrying credit card debt, the way that the financial institutions really see it is you're living outside of your means because you're supplementing income with the amount of credit card debt that you have. You're not budgeting properly. When you start getting above the 30% mark, that is really the big thing, guys. So if you have a credit card with a $10,000 limit, when you hit that $3,000 balance that you're carrying on that card, you're at 30% utilization. If you go up from there, your credit score will be negatively impacted, and it will be negatively impacted the higher and closer you get to that $10,000 limit. But the opposite is true. If you're at that $3,000 limit and you start paying it down, your credit score will increase with on-time payments, and your credit score will also increase because the credit utilization ratios have gone down. Now, one way that you can kind of systematically do this, guys, is again, if you're looking at the card with that $10,000 limit, you reach out to your credit card company and say, can we please increase the limit? I have a good relationship with you. I've made all of my payments on time. All of a sudden, they're like, sure, you now have a $20,000 limit. Well, guess what? Now your 30% utilization is at a $6,000 mark instead of the $3,000 mark that you were at when you had that $10,000 limit, immediately giving you and dropping the credit utilization. Now, one thing you do have to remember with this, guys, is when they do an increase, a majority of the credit card companies will run your credit, meaning it is going to be a hard inquiry on your credit, which can affect your score as well. A couple points if it is well established. If you have very limited credit, it could affect your score even more. So, all right, guys, so that'll do it for today's video. Anything above, again, that 750 mark is really the sweet point where it is just bragging rights. Again, I've never seen anyone at 850, which is kind of crazy in 16 years. There might be a day when I'm going to come and report to you guys that I have finally seen it, but as of today, it has not happened. So again, guys, that'll do it for today's video. Let me know in the comments what you guys think, and as always, thank you guys for watching.